Welcome to Informed Sources on News Channel 3, where we talk about the week's big stories with local voices. I'm your host, Greg Hurst. Thanks so much for joining us. And in a moment, I'll introduce our panel. But first, we have a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. Yesterday, the Memphis City Council delayed its third and final reading of an ordinance calling for the immediate removal of Confederate statues. This time, the city is asking to hold a mediation session with Mayor Strickland and the Sons of Confederate Veterans to talk about the controversy, giving hope to many who say it's time they come down. Also tonight, election season in Shelby County is gearing up. We'll talk about some of the familiar faces that are in the race and what they're up against at the polls. But first, our hot topic tonight, a group of House Democrats took to the national stage last week to send a clear message to President Trump that the president must go. Many Democrats have publicly toyed with the idea of articles of impeachment against the president for months now, but last week, 6 lawmakers, including a prominent member of the Tennessee delegation, introduced articles of impeachment against the president. And that's just one of several issues from Washington we'll be discussing tonight. Now, to introduce our panel. First of all, WREG's political commentator, Otis Sanford. We have City Councilman Frank Colvett, also County Mayor Mark Luttrell, and then Congressman Steve Cohen. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Congressman, let's start with you, because you joined 5 of your House colleagues in adopting these articles of impeachment, but yet even the minority leader, Democrat Nancy Pelosi, won't publicly support that. If these are so clear-cut and these charges so egregious, why is it that you're having trouble finding other lawmakers to get on board?
Well, Leader Pelosi thinks it's politically ill-advised to do it and thinks it could be harmful to the Democrats. I don't want anything harmful to happen to the Democrats, but at the same time, I don't want to act in Congress for what is politically expedient for the Democrats, the Republicans, or the Greens. I want to do what my conscience says is the right thing to do. I believe, as to my 5 colleagues, that those 5 particular articles that we talked about, obstruction of justice, emoluments clause, domestic and foreign, and derogation of the press and the judiciary, are valid. And there were others, but we limited to the 5 that we found to be the most likely to be acceptable. I understand the politics, and the politics may or may not be right that it hurts Democrats. But if I feel that Republicans are putting party before the country and not bringing forth or joining in impeachment resolutions, then am I any better than them by not bringing impeachment resolutions with a safe district for impeachment because my leader doesn't think it's good for the Democrats? And the bottom line is, I just thought it was the right thing to do, and so do my other colleagues. And so I love Nancy Pelosi, but I don't think she's always right, and even if she is right, morally, I needed to do what I did. I came to the decision to do it after Charlottesville. There were not good people on the side of the Ku Klux Klan and the neo-Nazis. And when I saw those Klansmen and neo-Nazis marching with those torches and saying, Jews will not replace us, and all of what they were for, I called Nancy and I said, Nancy, I can't do it. I was considered impeachment and not done it before. I said, I've got to put in impeachment. I just want you to know that.
But you know, some of your opponents will say it wasn't necessarily Charlottesville. It was more that you're dissatisfied with the outcome of the election.
Well, sure, I'm not dissatisfied with the outcome of the election, but I was dissatisfied with George Bush's election. I didn't call him for impeachment, and I didn't come out for impeachment with Ronald Reagan or George Bush's father, Bush the first, Bush the second. You know, that has nothing to do with that. And I'm not going to be real pleased with Mike Pence being the president, but I realize that Mike Pence will not get us in a war with the little fat guy as a rocket man or whatever Trump calls him, which is so impolitic and so dangerous. He will not imperil our country's future in getting us into a war because of impolitic talk, nor will he say things that you'll have to shield your children's ears from. So, yeah, I mean, the outcome of the election includes Mike Pence, and I know that this will make Mike Pence president.
Let's bring our panel in here. Gentlemen, do you have any questions of the congressman since he's in the forefront of this discussion?
Well, yeah, I do. A quick statement and a comment and a question. It seems to me that if you decided to do it after Charlottesville, you know, the fact is that what he said at Charlottesville and how he acted at Charlottesville does not, to me, rise to high crime or misdemeanor, even though I thought it was terrible what he said. It seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Congressman, that the articles of impeachment seem to be a preemptive strike in case there is something really tangible that comes out of the Mueller investigation. That seems to me where the problem will lie, because every day we see a drip, drip, drip that is getting closer and closer to Trump's family, including Jared Kushner and Donald Trump Jr. Is this a preemptive strike to just have it there in case something with Mueller and not necessarily with Charlottesville or any of the other unbelievable things the president has done?
No, it's not a preemptive strike. Firstly, we didn't put Charlottesville in as part of our resolution because we'd worked this with 3 of the top constitutional scholars in the country, and they didn't think that was a justifiable article. High crimes and misdemeanors don't have to be violations of law. They can be things that make it difficult for the president to operate as the president, to protect our country and to do his job, and there can be all kind of assorted reasons to come to that conclusion. But I acquiesced because it was one that struck me personally. My district's African American, I'm Jewish. It was Jews and African Americans that were being the brunt of that attack. But I decided, yeah, I'm going to go with the scholars. So we backed off of that. Yeah, the Russian thing is good. I think it's going to come to fruition. I think there's going to be shown to be complicity, conspiracy, knowledge, action, aiding and abetting, you name it, with the Russians. That's just more and more it's going to become visible. But when that happens, to get impeachment to be successful, you'll have to have Republicans on board. And it'll have to be scheduled by the Republican chairman of the Judiciary Committee. And if it gets to that point, then the Republican chairman of the Judiciary Committee will decide what the resolution is, and he'll introduce it. What happens in Congress generally is if you were Einstein and you were in Congress and you came up with the equals MC squared, the chairman would take that over and it would be his bill, his invention.
Yeah. Well, let's bring a couple of conservative voices in this. Do you think any articles of impeachment have any merit?
Well, when we talk about egregious, I think egregious is a subjective determination in so many ways, and I think we have to be very careful when it comes to free speech and how that's used in applying the egregious label to that. Impeachment's been used very sparingly in the history of America. I think only less than 10 convictions over the life of our country. And typically, I'd like to see a more bipartisan type of approach to something that is significant and is impactful historically, as an impeachment process is. At this point, it to me appears to be more political than bipartisan, and I would like to see a little bit more consensus around an issue before I would endorse impeachment going forward.
Councilman, what are your thoughts?
I respect your conscience driving you to this, Congressman. I understand you feel the need to do it. Obviously, being a councilman, I'm focused on Memphis, and I want what's best for Memphis. And at this point, this truly appears to be a politically motivated. It only has 5 sponsors, so I don't think it's going to go anywhere at this point. And what I'd like to do, though, is keep our focus on moving Memphis forward. We have a high crime and high poverty rate here, so taking our focus away, even though I understand you feel the need, I respect that certainly. I feel like our focus really needs to be on the hometown and what we can do here.
Congressman, can you find any good qualities in President Trump?
There are a couple. I think I think General Mattis is a good Secretary of Defense, and I supported that change in law. I was one of a minority of Democrats who voted to not have a 7-year lapse period for the military down to 4 years so he could serve. I think it was terrible that he was going to pull the ban on importing ivory from Africa, but I thought it was good that he acquiesced to Ed Royce's suggestion and didn't do that. There was something else recently he did that I thought it was good that he released some of the Kennedy assassination papers. As we taped this show, it's on the anniversary of John Kennedy's assassination, which is something that is always on my mind and an occasion. But I was unfortunate. I thought that he didn't get into this a little earlier and get the FBI or the CIA or whoever it was to do the redacting they needed to do, so that on the day that they could be released, that they would release everything that was releasable. Instead, he gave them an extra 6 months to redact, when he could have had 6 months ago. He could have spent one weekend at home instead of going to play golf, and could have said, well, what's coming up? Oh, the Kennedy assassination papers. Oh, FBI, CIA, why don't y'all do the redacting so when we do it, it's done? instead of the last minute go, oh, we got to redact them. I'll give you another 6 months.
All right, so maybe there's a little bit of common ground there.
Yeah.
Not totally and completely, but a little.
I don't play golf, though.
There you go.
I don't have my own club.
He watches Tiger football.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
We're going to be going great on Saturday.
Well, when we come back, the White House is now pressing for a multinational travel ban once again, and also sexual misconduct claims have now hit the halls of Congress. That's next on Informed Sources.